I had never thought of it until pretty late in college. I was an English major studying American literature, and over the course of my years as an undergraduate, I started getting more and more interested in the historical context of the text I was reading. Well, at the time, it was mostly the second half of the 19th century, and so I studied history more as a kind of, it started out as a supplement to my literary studies, and then over time it became more and more central to what I was doing. And by the time I graduated, it was almost half and half for me, which is how I ended up in American studies. I had never had, I don't think, a talented history teacher until those years. So the first time I did have one, it kind of opened my eyes to what history could be in terms of creative work and politically meaningful work and relevant. I'd never been taught to think of history that way at all.
How had you seen it before that?
I think I had teachers where it was very rote. It was not creative. It wasn't even all that inquisitive. It was more just knowing, the standard thing, names and dates.
Yeah.
Right, and wars and battles and presidents.
Almost like an antiquarian.
Yeah, exactly. It was a dead thing of the past. And once I had, really creative, interesting, engaged professors, I kind of started to see that I just started to understand it in a different way. And then, the world around me, so I was, this is in the immediate kind of post-Vietnam years, and there were just, the social questions of the day had historical roots that were pretty visible, and so I was interested not just as an academic, but as a citizen, I guess, or just as an inhabitant of the world. There were all kinds of questions I had, and then, the day that I graduated college in 1980 and kicked around for a couple of years thinking that I'd go to graduate school, but not sure exactly when or where or even what field. And the day I decided to ask for applications was the day that the United States invaded Grenada in 1983, and it was exactly that kind of that intersection of really pressing political questions and feeling like there were things I needed to know about our history as a nation that seemed very important.
Do you think from the time that you entered grad school, do you sense that the field of history or American studies has changed in some basic ways? Or
Yeah, well, the biggest change in those years, so I'm of exactly that generation where the cultural turn had started happening. So I was trained by social historians, but I was kind of gradually becoming a cultural historian.
Yeah.
And just, which I can talk about if you want, but I never took a cultural history class. There wasn't even such a thing when I was in graduate school. There was American studies classes, but that was different. It was really that history and lit model. It wasn't cultural history as it's been practiced.
Right, like from the Harvard American Civilization kind of model?
Yeah, even still myth and symbol kind of,
Okay.
But what I found was, so I was an immigration historian, and I wanted to know not kind of residential patterns and census data. I wanted to know kind of how immigrants understood their own experience and how they saw the world.
Yeah.
And social history didn't really train you to do that, and I had to kind of make it up on the fly. And it meant learning languages, it meant looking at the immigrant press, it meant reading immigrant literatures, it meant studying kind of immigrant religious practices, and so that's how I became a cultural historian. And it was really to answer political questions about the politics of immigration. So in that sense, I'm a political historian who studies culture to answer political questions. But anyway, these were exactly the years where everybody was kind of taking that turn, and by the time I had my first job, I could offer a cultural history seminar, and everyone kind of knew what that would be and why one would do that. But it hadn't existed just a few years earlier.